Alright. Yay.
Woo.
Alright, no, we were sitting there talking about Dr. Fate, man, and then, like, the audio just, like, stopped, and then we all got tired. We were dribbling like idiots. So now we're all, like, at least partly refreshed, and we can now pick up where we left off. Now, another interesting concept at the end of that was that we were talking about the possibility, you actually came up with this, Tony, was the new possibility of there being a brand new Phantom Stranger, and I think I came up with the concept of a new Dr. Fate, like, the Dr. Fate, I don't know if it's actually in the actual recording, because I didn't get the opportunity to check it back, because, we need to try to get most of these cliff notes out here, but I put in that Dr. Occult should at least temporarily be the new Dr. Fate till, like, in a future timeline in this, actual story, that Zatanna's nephew or cousin actually becomes, the new Dr. Fate, because he's, by Naboo standards, he's too young. But you came up with an interesting concept for the Phantom Stranger, and the fact that we're going to get a brand new Phantom Stranger, at least from what you were saying last night.
Yeah. My concept, because the old Phantom Stranger was killed, and so the Lords of Order would decree that John Constantine would be the new Phantom Stranger. Now, here's my reasoning behind this. To the Lords of Order, John is the most logical choice, even though he's just a foul-mouthed, chain-smoking bastard. He does what's right, and we will have it in a scene where he stops the Tannerite man from robbing a bank. And the Lords of Order would remind John that before he becomes the new Phantom Stranger, that you did this. You gave someone back the money that a villain stole. So that shows order. And that's what the Phantom Stranger represents. Order. And I just thought it's an interesting character growth when it comes to John Constantine, and for him to transform to this, like, being of order would just be an interesting thing to see in this alternate DC universe.
Yeah, this Elseworld storyline, although you and I jokingly talked about how there should be a scene in, like, part of the epilogue where, he basically tells the Lords of Order to basically fuck off because he interfered, because he, like, punched out Neuron or something.
Yeah. Oh, it's not as funny as the thing we were talking about involving Deadman and someone Grundy will.
Oh yeah, suppose there's a part where, he's, talking with, like, Zatanna or something, and then, when he whisks or teleports away or whatever, that, Deadman's just, he's not completely behind the idea that John is the new Phantom Stranger, and Zatanna's like, why? He's wielding the power pretty, fairly. And I just want to have Boston just make a joke like, oh yeah, so maybe we should give chimpanzees nuclear weapons now too. Like, just have Brand make, like, a smart-ass comment.
Oh, yeah.
But I think a couple of cliff notes that you and I came up with, because Lord knows it would take, like, us 10 hours, and plus, we kind of want you guys' opinion on, on this. I think, leading up to these cliff notes, which is, here's the way that Tony and I kind of, at least, a couple of moments ago before I hit the record button, actually came to. We'll describe to you guys some of the cliff notes that we had actually come up with, a couple of ideas. If it sounds interesting enough to you guys, you can put in the comment box below, or, PM or whatever, because I'll also be posting this to the Characters and Why I Like Them Facebook deal. So basically, I want everybody to, like, get involved, after we do these cliff notes, let us know, is this a concept that you would want us to go into further detail for, like maybe the full-on ideas that we were coming up with for the past couple of hours. And because honestly, it's been fun, I think, for me, as it has been for you, just all these, like, really interesting and kind of bizarre, like, I guess some would even say controversial, like, concepts that we came up with.
Yeah, it's for the prospect of storytelling, And what these clip notes are going to be, what you're going to hear in a minute, I think they're very controversial, but they're going to work story-wise. And telling a good story is what comics should do, with great characters and great stories. Actually, anything should tell a great story. Now, I think that what we came up with is a good story.
Yeah, like basically some of the cliff notes, basic idea of a couple of things. Definitely there will be 7 people in this arc, maybe even 8, that are going to die, but their deaths are all going to be significant. A few of those characters are going to be Hunter Solomon, the second Professor Zoom, Gorilla Grodd, Aquaman, Mary Marvel, the original Phantom Stranger. Of course, Dr. Fate and the Doom Patrol will die at the very first issue, the very beginning.
Well, don't forget the people who would live in that suburb of Metropolis.
Also, the people in the suburb in that suburb of Metropolis that gets reduced to rubble, as well as Rudy Jones himself, the parasite.
Oh yeah.
And definitely the Cliff Note idea, which I'm pretty sure is somewhere in the previous like 30 minutes or so, like close to an hour.
Yeah, the most controversial death out of the group, Jim Gordon's death.
We actually, in this story, will kill, Commissioner Gordon, which I can already hear some of you just, like, seething, like, what? No, even better is that we're going to make Garfield Logan, we're going to make Beast Boy of the Teen Titans actually become very much like Robbie Baldwin, the former Speedball, back when he became Penance. We're going to have him be the only survivor of that whole battle with the Doom Patrol and Dr. Fate and, and Parasite, and we're gonna make his character a lot more darker, brooding, and more animalistic. Like, we're gonna see a whole new change in Beast Boy. He's gonna have a new code name and everything, a different appearance. He's gonna look like a fucking monster movie on crack.
Oh yeah, he will.
He's gonna. And, we certainly wanted to and I think another great concept, and it draws kind of from the video game Ultimate Alliance 2, minus, the whole nanite deal, is that we're going to actually have villains join the pro registration side, and a lot of them have their own secret agendas for doing so. Like, one cliff note is that with Aquaman's death, we were going to have a team-up between Ocean Master and Black Manta for the purpose that if Ocean Master takes the throne, that he can send Atlantean forces to help, aid, the pro-registration side. And we would also try to have, Gordon's death be in like a crossfire, of like, a battle that happens in Gotham and him trying to, bring order. We also had a scene where, we find out that each, side is going to have a mole. Clayface is going to be the pro-registration mole, and Boston Brand, Deadman, is going to be the anti-registration, mole. And we were going to have a whole entire scene right towards the very end where we bring back a really obscure DC hero, which is Dr. Mist, who has actually been gone missing, since, like, his last appearance. And we find out that he has actually become one of the many secret guardians, aside from, Rip Hunter and Booster Gold, of, the multiverse. However, he's more like the main secret guardian because everyone, not even Rip Hunter, actually knows that he exists because he constantly has to mind wipe people, so that way his existence is not compromised. And I wanted to have a shocking deal where Captain Atom actually goes into the future as the after effect of this civil war, and that Brainiac and Darkseid have waged such an epic, like, gang war-esque type battle that the planet is ravaged and damn near uninhabitable. And so, Captain Atom sees this ravaged future and even possibly sees his own death, his own, the after effects of his own death, and that shakes him. And then we want to try to bring it, and we also brought in, I think previously we mentioned that, the Bat computer is going to be crashed, and that Lex is going to have almost like big major reference to Tower of Babel, he's going to actually have all the files on like every single like JLA, JSA member, etc. And definitely I think the biggest problem between you and I, Tony, was figuring who's going to make a cameo in this, just like, oh, they're going to be in the background, who's going to be the main parts of it. I think certainly we can agree that all the main characters are going to be in there. We're going to have the House of L family, all the Kryptonian characters. Naturally, we're going to have, the JSA, the JLA, maybe former members of the JLI, the Green Lantern Corps, the Rogues, the Secret Society, like, the various superhero and supervillain groups that you would expect to have a place in the story.
Then we'll have all the mystical characters involved in this. Like,
I want to try to put a lot of characters, I think, in this story that could actually, they're doing shit. They're here.
Yeah, but I think one of my favorite things, that's a bit of a cliff note, that because of Jim Gordon's death, we'll see a completely different Batman. Like, you'll see something break in Batman.
Oh yeah, we'll see, Bruce Wayne will actually, like, snap because of Gordon's death. An innocent man is caught in the crossfire. But the crazier part that I think I came up with is that he actually is hit with a disintegrated, like, radiation round that matches the same signature as Captain Atom.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's going to make, Batman want to beat the crap out of Captain Atom even more, because he thinks that, that Captain Atom, while fighting a villain, because Captain Atom will conveniently be there in Gotham, that he'll think that, that Gordon, got, like, hit by, like, a stray blast from him or something. And you also want, and I think definitely, you're going to have some characters start out as pro, but then go to anti, characters like, Jaime Reyes, and this one may shock some people, but Giganta. And Giganta would go to anti-registration because of the fact of seeing, Ryan Choi, a guy who, at least in this continuity, she still had a bit of a thing with him, that, yeah, she switches sides, based on seeing that, okay, Lex, he's led the Secret Society, I've went with it, but this is too far to where even I can't go it. And I think with Hunter Solomon's, death, the second Professor Zoom, a great cliff note is that we thought, well, why not do what happened to Matt Murdock in the Marvel Civil War? When he got arrested, Danny Rand, Iron Fist took over as Daredevil. He took over as Daredevil. Well, I thought, well, what if Scott Free actually built himself a new Genesis new Genesis or Apocalyptian tech-based, like Flash suit, and took Wally's place, as that Flash, while Wally's sitting there in jail.
Yep. Yeah.
So
I really like that idea.
And a lot of people, and I'm sure most of you are probably going, well, why would Mr. Miracle take over? It's like, well, who thought that Iron Fist was going to pose as Daredevil? It's like, the most unlikely character to take that temporary mantle. Like, do a solid for that character. And I thought, plus Mr. Miracle is one of my top 10 favorite DC obscure heroes, I mean. So, it's a cheap excuse for me to get one of my favorite characters in there.
Yeah.
So, come on, give me a little bit of credit there.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we have to mention, even though this is a dark story, there will be moments of humor.
Oh, definitely. You and I came up with a funny deal where when they do what I call the Watergate scandal, where they're trying to find, all this evidence after Captain Atom has been betrayed by, Lex Luthor. We actually had one dark-humored moment where Lex makes a joke about, Kyle Rayner's former girlfriend being stuffed in the refrigerator by, Major Force. We make a callback to that, very sick and tragic, Bronze Age event where, as, Captain Atom's bleeding out atomic energy very slowly, Major Force, he's like, come on, I want to beat on him. And Lex is like, relax, let him bleed out, and then you can do whatever you want to his corpse. You can even break him in half and stuff him in a fridge.
Lex is maybe an asshole in the regular DC universe, but in this world, he's a major asshole.
And then I came up with the concept where as they're breaking in, they're fighting all these various, villains and, like other pro-registrated heroes and what have you that still don't know that Lex is an evil, bastard. And I came up with a scene where basically, I wanted to do something fun with Deadman. It's like, okay, Deadman has the ability to possess other people's bodies. I thought it'd be too funny not to, Tony, and you and I were sitting here just absolutely fucking howling like hyenas at this, but the possibility of him taking control of Solomon Grundy and then, like, Felix Faust trying to do a spell and he throws a couch at him and says, shut it, Lawrence of Arabia, nobody cares. Or something like that.
Oh, but that's not the best part.
Oh no, the best part is when he actually grabs and, like, fucking, like, punch spikes, Major Force right into the ground. And then he, like, leaves Grundy's body, and then Major Force starts beating the shit out of Grundy. Because he thinks that, he's possessed by Deadman. And then, after Grundy, and Major Force are taken down, then, like, Grundy's the only one still standing. And then I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go for a Three Stooges, like, goofy gag. Like, it's going to be the only, like, ridiculously, like, one-liner joke after joke type, part of the entire series. And I'm going to have Boston just take control of Grundy's body. Like, he'll, like, control, like, the left side, and Grundy controls the right side. And I just want to have him start doing stuff where he's like, quit hitting yourself, and he's making Grundy punch himself in his face, poke his eyes like it's a Three Stooges or Marx Brothers skit. And then eventually, Boston starts to, like, lose control, he's slowly being forced out. And then at the last minute, I want it just because it'd be the funniest panel of the entire book, or the entire series even. I just thought, you know what? I'm going to go for a cheap nutshot joke and just have him go, yeah, but I got one last thing to say, before I actually, pull out of here, Grundy. Oh, and what would that be? Rochambeau, and have him punch, Solomon Grundy and force, the whole left side of Solomon Grundy's body to just, like, shift and completely just fucking super duper, like, mega punch him, almost like a Falcon punch, right into his nuts. And then you have, like, this big over-exaggerated panel where, like, drool's flying out of Grundy's mouth. His eyes just, like, get really wide, and he has that look like, he just had, like, the wind completely knocked out of him. And just have him go, Grundy no like Rochambeau. Rochambeau hurt. Rochambeau really hurt. And then just have Grundy topple like an oak tree. And then right as Grundy's falling, just have, like, Bran yell something like, timber or something, but right before he actually possesses Grundy's body, Grundy could actually, like, try. And I think what would be funny is that as Grundy gets up after being nutshotted, he should try to, like, angrily swing and smash Bran, and Bran just sits there. And I just want to have him go, hey, dummy, I'm a ghost. You can't hurt me. He goes, Grundy, unless you know a magic spell or some kind of hocus pocus voodoo stuff, have him, like, do the finger twirl thing too, just to add sarcasm. He goes, unless you can do some hoodoo voodoo, I'm a ghost. I'm air. You can't hurt me. Grundy will find way to hurt you, and then Grundy just eventually passes out because he just wears himself out trying to swing at Brand. Well, and people, I'm sure a lot of you would probably call bullshit on that, but it's for the sake of humor, and everything else in this book is just really dark, violent, and oblique. So
yeah,
it's like,
we have Gorilla Grodd being mauled by the new version of Beast Boy, so yeah.
And we have a mind-controlled top, like, drilling a hole in the second Professor Zoom's chest or something. We have Mary Marvel basically being, beaten to death by Black Adam.
Then we have a fight with Billy Batson as Captain Marvel, fighting Captain Marvel Jr., which is Freddie Freeman, which...
And they crack the Rock of Eternity, so it's like, come on, and on top of that, one scene that I came up with that, even you went, whoa, was what if, Garfield Lyons, Firefly, what if Bruce actually blows out, his jetpack, and he starts and it spontaneously combusts. And he starts rolling around on the ground on fire, and he can't put out the fire. And you see that brief moment where Batman almost actually lets him burn alive.
Because, get this, people, this is right after Gordon's death.
Yeah. We actually see Batman kind of start to wane from his own moral code a little bit. He's out for blood.
Oof. Yeah, that was one scene that should be in there to show how distraught, in a way, how distraught Batman is at Gordon's death.
I think one that you equally came up with was, Batman actually finding Bane and actually breaking him in half.
Oh yeah, I thought that would be... It's interesting and ironic.
It'd be poetic justice,
yeah, poetic justice. Like, you broke my back, I'll break yours.
I think definitely... I think definitely there was a lot of... granted, a lot of these are just simply that, they are cliff notes. I mean, you and I have talked, for the last couple of hours, at least at the time of, this, new set of recordings here, we've actually been sitting here talking for a couple of hours, about, all the various concepts going in depth, but even then, some of them still, could be easily reworked. I mean, and given time, I'm sure, we'll keep going through revisions, but I think definitely, we thought about it and we thought, well, we'll call it a crisis, and I came up with the idea of, we could call it heroic crisis, even though that sounds really dumb. That's at least the best that I've come up with thus far. And I mean, certainly, the back, and I mean, certainly, I think, the front cover, especially of the trade, would actually have the pro side on the left and the anti-registration on the right, and it could be completely done by Alex Ross. Because let's face it, Alex Ross is kick-ass when it comes to making covers.
Oh yeah. And I can just picture it now. That kind of cover. Oof, that would be good.
And certainly, the death issues where each character actually dies. We definitely show their death, but we make each cover look like, we made each cover just significant, it's very eye-catching.
Yeah.
Or, or it makes you want to actually read that specific issue. For example, I talked about how, doing an introverted version of, the Death in the Family cover where, Bruce is holding, Jason Todd, who was, Robin at that time, in his arms. But what if, Bruce is on the left, and we see a side view of him, and he's holding up, Gordon, who's, holding his abdomen, he's kind of bleeding out, he's got a little bit of a trickle of blood coming out of his mouth, his glasses are crooked and broken, and he's the centerpiece of that panel. And there's a little bit of rubble you see in the background that buildings are on fire or crumbling and stuff. You want to set this dystopian almost looking image. And you see, and it would almost be also kind of reminiscent, I would say, of the death of Captain Stacy. In the Spider-Man comics, almost that kind of same variant cover as well. And I think definitely probably the most, I would say, gory of them all is probably the new Beast Boy image, because you see Gorilla Grodd with his eyes, glazed over. You see, maybe, a trickle of blood coming from his mouth. And you see a small portion of maybe, where his stomach will be torn open. And I want to have, Garfield Logan, Beast Boy, holding, a giant chunk of, raw meat and, blood dripping from his mouth. And he's just staring straight at you, the reader. That would be a very nightmarish or haunting image, but it's like that cover would be extremely powerful for the simple fact that we're seeing Garfield take the kid. That's one thing about this, like story idea that me and Tony have, is the fact that the kid gloves are coming off in this story. We're not holding any punches. We're doing the Jeff Johns hyper violent stuff, but it wouldn't be violence for the sake of violence. It's violence with a purpose.
Yeah, these deaths, each of them have significance in this series, and it will be set. It would have been set in the old DC continuity before the New 52 happened, and I think this is a story that truly fits in that kind of universe, even though it's going to be an Elseworld story.
Yeah, and plus I think you and I kind of joked, coming up with this idea, it's a lot better than even, when Marvel did the Civil War, and a lot better executed as well.
Oh yeah. Because the thing is, everyone, but when Marvel did the Civil War, it's just two sides opposing each other. But what we're doing here, yeah, it's two sides opposing each other, but in the end, it's going to be the heroes regrouping. They're going to fight side by side again and take out the villains. And since this looming cosmic threat, like the multiverse, will be shred to pieces if this war doesn't stop. Yeah, that's a good reason. And plus, we're not going to choose one side to say, hey, this side wins automatically because, we like this character and it should go like this. We're not going to make Captain Atom the winner or Batman the winner. They're all going to be the winners in the end because they get to save the world from Lex Luthor and the Secret Society.
More Lex Luthor than anything, and also, they got to help, try to restore the cosmic balance of the universe, as well, or at least make an attempt to. And I think what also really works about that as well is that, okay, in the Civil War, Tony Stark was an asshole. And he stayed kind of an asshole. In this one, Captain Atom, he's very reluctant in a lot of the stuff that he does. And certainly one great scene to show that, he still is a hero and not a complete douchebag is General Wade Illing, who originally, was his commanding officer and actually had blackmailed him. I always wanted this scene, especially since, I did especially in the lesser known on Captain Atom, I talked about Nathaniel, the Captain Atom that we all know, the armor-skinned, Captain Atom, that he actually was being blackmailed into being, Captain Atom and working for Illing, and I thought, wouldn't it just be great if, Illing, who has become, the General, that giant monster creature that you all saw in Justice League Unlimited, yeah, that was actually Illing. What if Adam just finally tells him, you know what, go ahead and blackmail me, I'm tired of your bullshit, boom, just beats the shit out of him.
Yeah, I like that scene.
Yeah, because I definitely want to show that, yeah, he is a soldier, yeah, he follows like a little loyal soldier does, but at the same time, he's looking at it from the perspective of, well, it's a necessary evil, but I still don't like a lot of, the things that I have to do. Like, we saw Tony Stark, and yeah, he had that same quality, but it wasn't reinforced. In this story, we would want to reinforce the point that, at his core, Nathaniel wants to try to be a good man. He wants to try to do what he feels is right. But I think towards the end as well, especially with that shocking revelation, from Dr. Mist's, cameo, where, almost in like a Doctor Whoian type style, admits to him, yeah, this war wasn't supposed to happen, and it's tearing apart, the cosmic balance of the universe. And pretty much, seeing this, Nathaniel's like, okay, everything that's happened at this point isn't really working. It's tearing the multiverse apart. And I think definitely a huge play of that would be, the death of the Phantom Stranger as well, playing a key role in that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, definitely we still got a lot of cliff notes here, guys, but a few of these concepts are certainly at least interesting.
Being Superman, Superboy, and Supergirl, they're not going to be in this conflict. They're actually going to be in the future helping the Legion of Superheroes. So this is the one event that will not feature Superman.
Yeah, it's the one event that will not feature Superman, Superboy, or Supergirl. However, Karen Starr, Power Girl, will actually be in this event. She'll be the only actually House of L member that will have any appearance, if at all, in this event. And I think that was something that you and I had actually mentioned because, she is kind of the weakest Kryptonian. Not, that she's like weak, but just, concerned that she comes from an alternate Earth. She doesn't have the same abilities, as her cousins.
That's true.
Or rather her powers are not quite as strong as her cousins, but that doesn't detract from Karen being a powerhouse neither.
Yeah, that's true, and I think there should be characters that are powerhouses. Look at the Marvel Civil War. They had, like, Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, they had She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters.
Yeah. They had Simon Williams.
Mm-hmm. A lot of powerhouse characters in that event. So at least in the DC Civil War, we're calling the Heroic Crisis. There will be powerhouse characters like Jean.
Oh yeah, I
mean, we're gonna have Kara Star, Power Girl.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have we're gonna have Power Girl. I think Starman might possibly make an appearance.
Well, that depends,
Yeah, it really depends. There are certain characters that myself and Tony are kind of looking at and saying, well, should we add this character? Should we not add this character? I think what also makes this event significant is that we're going to be splitting teams and even duos, that have been known to be together. Like, I think one duo that we talked about splitting, two of them actually was Fire and Ice and Hawk and Dove.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's, I can see it now. Somewhere in the world, I can actually hear Mount Vernon kid going, "Whoa." Nah, I'm messing around with you, Chris. But even then, I'm sure that's at least a little intriguing to you. But I mean, we certainly want to definitely, like, okay, the JLA, the JSA, and the JLI splitting. That honestly to me is kind of no real big deal.
Given. But
yeah, it's going to be kind of a given that some of them are going to be split. But yeah, like members of the Teen Titans will actually even, be split. But I think what I certainly find interesting is definitely, that we're going to see a few duos, like Hawk and Dove and like Fire and Ice, actually like split up from each other. And I think, we're going to see a lot of people like have to deal with certain things, within this Elseworlds continuity type story, because we're going to see a lot of, and even then, there's still going to be some characters that they're not going to have any speaking parts. They're just going to be in the background. They're just going to be there for like a cheap cameo. But certainly, we don't want to include the entire DC universe.
Yeah, because that's too expansive.
Yeah, like there's way too many characters. Like, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get Tony wrong. We do want to include a lot of obscure characters just for the sake of adding them in there, but we also have to be careful with how we roster things out. We don't want so many obscure characters that people will just look and go, well, they're just throwing characters in there just for the fuck of it. We want to add like certain cameo characters to where it's like, hey, we haven't seen this character in a while, or who the hell is that character in the background? Like, we want to add characters that may have some significance, and more or less we'll get a lot of the lower tiered characters, like Stargirl and stuff in there, like characters that you may recognize from, say, like, Justice League Unlimited and stuff.
Or, God forbid, or that one episode of Smallville known as Absolute Justice, which is actually one of the better episodes of that show.
Batman Brave and the Bold as well, characters
Oh, yeah.
that were actually there. You and I were actually talking about, that the third Firestorm, Jason
Rush.
Jason, is it pronounced Rosh?
Yeah, it's Rush.
Like Jason Rosh, that would be the Firestorm that I think would be, perfect for that story. I mean, you want to talk about a powerhouse character that's kind of underused. It's like, I think definitely in this story should show definitely, just how powerful Firestorm actually is. Like, have him, take on a few, like, heavy-hitting characters. Like, definitely, there's definitely a lot of ideas that I think you and I have come up with thus far. I mean, we were coming up with ideas even, and you can hear the few words here and there, that Mr. Lone Wolf was actually, like, it was so funny listening, to Kyle in the background. It almost seemed like, I mean, sometimes, he doesn't always, like, say much, but I think the few things that he was saying, I think he was very much in awe of where we were going with this, and he's strictly a Marvel guy.
Yeah,
like
we actually got him interested in this story, and he doesn't read much DC. He doesn't read any DC books. I think this would be the one DC book he would actually read.
I think when we were actually like talking legitimately, like he was just sitting there, like he doesn't read DC stuff because he finds Marvel's characters a lot more interesting. But after the audio had incidentally cut off, from the last time, he actually, which was right around the point that we were talking about, like Dr. Fate coming back in like, armor and stuff and not making him look like the Redeemer. When you hear that part of the voice dialogue, that was where it actually cut off. After that, we were sitting there talking, and I'll never forget, Kyle just sounded like he was a little kid in a candy shop, Tony. He was just like, he's like, I don't read DC books, but this one I would make an exception for. And I'm just sitting there. Like, he was just so damn excited by the prospect of what you and I were coming up with. This alternate universe story that, while hyper violent, it tells a very dark story, and it actually I think definitely one thing in the writing, while all the Michael Bay explosions and, like hyper violence and dudes getting the crap kicked out of them, and, while all that's good, definitely at the end of the day, we want to tell a very dark story that kind of touches upon, the themes of, well, what's more right? Is it more right, it's basically touching upon the age-old superhero theme that Civil War kind of did, but kind of failed to do. It kind of dropped out halfway through a couple of issues, which was the fact of, okay, should superheroes be government, regulated, or and should superheroes be made responsible for their actions when a tragic event, say like the Stamford, Connecticut thing, happen? Or should superheroes in the public eye not really be blamed? Should they just try to help repair the damage and, do what they need to do as long as they're not interfering or harming, the general public? And I think that's a theme that Civil War brought up and dropped halfway through, but that one that I found very interesting because it is definitely one that a lot of people are on the fence on. Because there were some people reading that story that they liked, that they kind of agreed with the pro-registration side. And then there's some, like me,
and me,
that, you and I were both talking how, it's like it's understandable that the government would want to regulate superheroes, but ultimately, if somebody's risking their life to save somebody else, I don't think that's really the government's right to tell them, well, they have to register with the government, they have to be publicly known.
Yeah.
Case in point, Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Civil War led to one more day. Think about that.
And on top of that, we actually almost saw Aunt May get killed, and we saw, Mary Jane being threatened by every single Spider-Man villain that Pete had ever faced.
Best decision Peter Parker has ever made. There's some decisions he hasn't made that turned out to be good.
I mean, I think definitely, our scapegoat, our Peter Parker, is definitely Jaime Reyes because, his father is what? His father works in a mechanic shop and, he's handicapped, if I remember correctly. Like, he actually works out of a wheelchair. And so, what if, when Jaime is revealed by the government, that characters like Black Beetle and stuff start going after his family? And, he blames Captain Atom for that. It's like, so each character, or at least the majority, I would hope, of characters actually will have significant moments. And we're going to have moments in here that are going to be very shocking. Like, during the death of Aquaman, Mira is actually beaten and, basically like, chained down to a floor like, a slave or something. Or like, a prisoner. And I just wanted to have a scene where Black Adam...
You mean Black Manta?
Yeah. See, I'm getting my words all twisted around. Black Manta, I mean, actually goes... All you see is just like him shutting the cell door. It's almost completely dark, and the last panel is just like the red glow of his helmet.
Yeah, well, I think one of the last few cliff notes we should mention is that there is light at the end of this story.
Oh yeah, definitely. We bring it all back in, I'd say, the final 2 or 3 issues, because we're going to make it in
2. Because this would be, in our heads, this would be an 11-issue series. And the 11th issue being the epilogue.
I mean, certainly, the 10th or 11th, certainly, 10, 11, or like, 9, 10, and 11, regardless. We want to try to build it all back to... I don't want to say like, sunshines and rainbows. Certainly, you'll see the devastation of what this war raged havoc on. But I think in 10 and 11, you'll start to kind of see, the healing process. You'll see bonds being rebuilt. You'll see wounds being healed and, cities, actually being helped rebuild, and that you'll see heroes actually be involved in that. And I think definitely what would also be cool is what if issue 11, the epilogue, actually had 2 variant covers. One featured Dr. Occult's, Dr. Fate with like tarot cards, and then, you'd show John Constantine, as the New Fam Stranger, smoking a cigarette with kind of like a mild smirk on his face, and there's what looks like, crystal balls or like, smoking mirrors, right on like, his variant cover. Like, and each of them would have like different like sets of what, was happening in the story or previous issues. Like, one of them for John's would be, showing Lex Luthor, actually being loaded in a police van, after both his impeachment and arrest. And I definitely think for Dr. Fate's, they should have like, Superman and Batman just in the Batcave talking to each other, at least like a small variant of that. And I think definitely, you'll see the rebuilding process. You'll see people kind of start to, come back together. And I think definitely the book will actually end with, Dr. Fate and Madame Xanadu talking. And, they actually look in, and Madame Xanadu, using her clairvoyant powers, sees into the future. And she sees a bright future where Connor Kent is actually Superman. He's helping train Lois and Clark's, daughter. Yes, in this story we would actually have, Lois and Clark actually have a child. Which I'm sure a lot of Superman fans and even non-Superman fans are going to be crying bullshit over. But oh fucking well. Damn it, I want to see it.
Yeah, I want to see it too.
You would also actually see a new iteration of the Rogues that would actually work alongside Bart Allen's Flash. Yeah, Wally West would become the Jay Garrick, and Bart Allen would become the main Flash, and he would actually have a relationship, and Bart would actually have a relationship with Captain Cold's, daughter, who is actually the leader of what I dubbed the New Rogues, which is actually an anti-hero / heroic group that actually assists the Flash. which I can imagine so many Flash fans right now are just sitting there going, what? Then there's all, and then, of course, Freddie Freeman. Yeah, damn it, audio cut off of me there. But anyway, probably missed a couple of dialogue lines or something, but that's okay. Basically, the basic premise that I'm going on here, and that even Tony's going on here, at least on an aside here, is that this 11th issue is going to show that at least in terms of the continuity of this Elseworld story, that there's going to be a bright future, and at the end of it, we're going to have a close-up of Dr. Fate talking to Madame Xandu, and he goes, I don't need a crystal ball, I don't need your tarot cards, I don't even need to use my magics to see the future. He goes, I already know what the future is going to be filled with, and what is going to be filled with, or something like that. And I just want to have like this close-up where we see Dr. Fate's eyes, and through his eyes, you want to see like the emotion that he's spelling, and the only word that I want to end it on is like hope. Because that's always a big theme of the DC universe that I like, especially with Dr. Fate, is the hope of tomorrow.
Yep. If you will.
So definitely, definitely the way that I think you and I would both want to end it is showing that in terms of this continuity of this story, we're going to see the future, and we're going to see a very bright future for the DC universe.
Oh yeah, it'll be a very bright future. Out of all the death, war, almost cataclysmic event that would have transpired if this war didn't end.
And I think definitely, we'll start to, and I think definitely, we're not going to go completely into the whole future deal, but but I think definitely you and I, at least there should be some semblance of showing, that okay, there is a bit of a future. I think definitely another cool epilogue deal that we actually came up with, right before, doing these recordings, was the possibility of doing a Heroes for Hire inspired, almost like a Heroes for Hire / Thunderbolts inspired team for the DC universe at the end of the story, where certain villains actually start to reform and form their own superhero team of sorts, or people that just join the team because they want to try to find a way of redemption, but also some people that want to make money, i.e., a couple of characters like Jason Todd and Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy, and like Metallo, and even characters like Dr. Polaris, who they want to try to make money. They want money, but they want to try to make it in a way that maybe they want to redeem themselves, and each person would have their own purpose for doing so. And I think that would be a pretty interesting concept. A couple of anti-hero or villain characters, kind of becoming this oh yeah, diplomats, pay them, cities, pay them, basically, they're charged for their services, almost kind of like in the way of the A-Team or something.
But I think that's the best way to kind of end that story. A prospect of the future in scenes of redemption in certain characters.
Exactly, like certain characters that you think wouldn't really have any sense of redemption, actually, at the end of the book, they start to try to, I guess, go on a journey of, self-discovery, or they try to rediscover themselves, and they think about, or they kind of, rethink their lives just a tad bit.
Yep.
So I definitely... And also, I think, the whole, and also, I think one thing to add, especially to this recording, is that I think what would be funny is that future where Darkseid and Brainiac both try to fight over who's going to take over the world. I think would be kind of funny and cool if in that I think, either the very last panel or the second to last panel, right as, they do the close-up of Dr. Fate, and he says, the hope of tomorrow or something, you should see, a crystal ball in the background, actually, show Superman, punch Darkseid in the face or something.
Oh yeah.
Like, or at least like or at the very least, like make reference to, you know, both guys being, or maybe, possibly if this idea actually had become popular or something, like say we were to do a sequel or like a continuation, maybe that would lead to other events, such as the Brainiac, and Darkseid, war, if you will, and the heroes and even some of the redeemed, villains going with that. I think another Elseworlds like continuity where certain characters kind of become heroes or like are redeemed, I think would be kind of cool. But we're gonna actually leave it off at that. There's at least one or two ideas I think that you and I have been kicking around, especially one that deals with the Princess of Gem world. But
And I think we'll save Amethyst for a different story.
Not only a different story, but I think a different time. We'll possibly share cliff notes for ideas for that story if and when, we get the opportunity for it. For right now, we're just, you and I are both kind of just like building around, this whole like heroic crisis, this DC Civil War, kind of idea. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's this whole entire like arc thingy. It's probably a little over 2 hours. I may have to split this, but yeah, that is it. I've got a few words here and there, from Mr. Lone Wolf in the first set of recordings, and otherwise, this has, I think, been just straight you and I practically, this whole entire like audio recording as well.
Oh yeah. Well, it's fun doing a collaboration of like ideas to work on a really amazing story.
And I'm sure the minute that this thing either stops on its own or I hit the stop record button, you're gonna immediately jump to your laptop or grab like about like 5,000 notebooks from Staples and just start like scribbling like a madman. Do a fanfic.
More than likely, I'll probably write the one thing I'll most likely do is write the first issue of this story.
No, but even I have to admit that it's certainly it's funny. It's like, it started out just as like, an interesting topic, and now I think we've kind of like built this thing to have like a life of its own now. Which is kind of funny, at least to me, because I was just all willy-nilly about it, and now it's like, I kept walking around, like thinking about that, and I'm like, this sounds kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
And it actually harkens back to the video that I did, on Our Man of Steel, that whole proposed story that I had made quite a while back, about the whole idea of how would the people of Metropolis and even some of Superman's greatest allies and enemies view him. It's kind of on that same level to where it's like, this is just something that it adds a certain depth and a different twist on how you may shall we say, like, view certain characters. Like, it's almost in that way of Kingdom Come as well, and the fact that we're going to see a whole different side of the DC universe. It's not going to be all squeaky clean. You're going to see a lot of concepts come up that some are just going to call bullshit on, or some people are going to say, that's biased or hatred and this and that. Keep in mind, it's an Elseworlds story, i.e. we can take the liberties with that because it's not main continuity.
Yeah, anything, you can do almost anything with an Elseworlds tale. If Mark Miller or Mark Millar, whatever his last name is, can come up with a story where Superman is raised in Russia during the Cold War.
And if you can come up with a stupid story where Superman is actually wielding a giant set of guns, and he's all bearded like fucking Moses, and he's yelling, I am a man for no utter random reason.
While punching an android in the chest?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you can come up with with, you know, a story that, yeah.
Or better yet, making Batman into a vampire.
Or even better. We could do a story by Frank Miller where Batman's a crusty, fat old man, and he actually has one last battle with the Joker, where the Joker snaps his own neck. Or Superman is a government mule, and he and Wonder Woman fuck in the air, and then like an Irish midwife, you know, she actually shits out a godchild.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So this is what we deal with when it comes to Elseworlds tales, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh wait, no. Let's not forget about Frank Miller's, you know, pedophilic deal where Ray Palmer's hiding out in the butt cheeks of, damn it, I forget Kelly's last name.
Carrie Kelly.
I think it was like Carrie Kelly, whatever. The female Robin that was in The Dark Knight Returns, calling her Catgirl, and she's got damn roller skates and wearing a skin-tied outfit. It's like, Frank, I'm pretty sure she's 16. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Anyway, I have no idea why we just went on that tirade, but anyway. Anyway, guys, you know, I'm going to turn the video off now before me and Tony start going on other asides that have nothing to completely do with what we're talking about here. So with that, guys, you know, these are a few of the cliff notes or ideas, you know, that we're talking about. If you want us to get more in-depth about it, then, you know, certainly, you know, post a comment, you know, in the boxes below, PMs, you know, and what have you. And certainly I think, you know, the next time that you and I get together, Tony, I think it'll be fun, you know, to kind of, you know, go a little more in detail with these ideas.
Oh.
If people so choose it.
Or we can come up with other interesting ideas, like take DC stories but put them in the Marvel universe.
There you go. We could sit here and riff on these. We can sit here and just riff all the time, but I think certainly I don't want it to be just you and I either. I mean, as cool as it is for us to have like all the ideas that we do, I certainly don't want to leave anybody else out who may, you know, want to put their creative 2 cents in there.
Yeah, I think Kyle would definitely just join in on the Marvel side of things.
Oh yeah, and of course, I could imagine that, you know, good old F.W. Waller would probably have a few of his own ideas for certain things.
Oh yes, of course.
So I can just see it now. If we do a much more detailed video, you and I are probably going to be considered the loose cannons of the YouTubers 3. I can see it now. You guys came up with this concept, and people will be like, "Whoa, they're outlaws." You know, they came up with a story that makes Jeff Johns, you know, bright as day and black as night, you know, look like fucking Chucky at like a fraternity party or some shit. Little plastic butt cheeks holding a strawberry and dipping it into like a beer stein. But first, you gotta climb a little tiny wooden rickety-crickety step ladder.
Okay.
And I have no idea what the fuck I just said there, so...
Well, I think I'm viewed as the crazy person in the YouTubers 3, apparently.
Well, that's because there's nothing wrong with talking to yourself, but when you talk to yourself, you almost come across as a mental patient, and some of us stare at each other and we're like, okay, do we need to get this guy a straitjacket? You know, like sometimes it gets worrisome.
And I apologize for that.
And I don't know. I don't know. The way I look at it, we're all crazy in the YouTubers 3. Hell, we're all crazy in general. Not even just the YouTubers 3. Not even just you and I. It's just everybody. YouTube, the world, everything. Everybody's crazy.
Yep.
You know, but the key is, is that craziness unsound, or is it just, more like, yeah, we're crazy just for the sake of being, crazy and random and stuff?
That's the way I see it.
I prefer the latter, but we'll leave you guys to debate all of that at a much later date. Alright, so how exactly are we going to start this actual topic? Anybody really know how to exactly title this? I guess what, should we, entitle it, like DC's, equivalent of the Civil War if it were to happen?
Let's say a possible Elseworlds title, the DC Civil War. Or something like, what if this happened? The DC Civil War.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Pretty much, that Elseworld stories are always great, but I think this is certainly one that, we should at least try to do somewhat of a video on, because we've been coming up with a lot of really good ideas thus far, and we haven't even come up with how the event would even kick off.
Yeah, I think we should actually start working on that video.
Actually, pretty much, that video is in the present, whereas it was in the past, and I don't know, we're going into paradoxes.
It doesn't matter. It needs to be recorded.
Well, that's why we're already at, a minute and a half now, or past it.
Oh, okay. Let's begin, shall we?
How exactly will we kick it off? I mean, already, pretty much, we want to try to make it as devastating as possible. Try to almost, mirror the Marvel Civil War. But definitely, I think two characters that need to be killed off that would devastate this is the Phantom Stranger and Dr. Fate. Having those two out would probably, not only, as you actually said earlier, Tony, it would disrupt the balance of the order and chaos, but also would devastate a lot of the roster in the DC universe, because Dr. Fate was a big character and a close friend to a lot of people.
Well, I think the best way to do that is with a group of young heroes, kind of similar to what the New Warriors were doing, fighting against. I'd say we take at least a small group of small teen heroes. That way, you want them to survive and have survivor skills. I say the Doom Patrol. I say the Doom Patrol go on a mission and they fight the Parasite.
Okay.
And when the Doom Patrol actually go into and they fight, and they decide to fight the Parasite into a very pristine, very perfect-looking suburban area in Metropolis. And when the Parasite, and when Dr. Fate, seeing that wanting to help the Doom Patrol, Parasite takes the opportunity to drain a little bit of Dr. Fate's energy. The Doom Patrol intervene, and the fight all concludes in a big explosion of magical energy, leaving Dr. Fate dead, and I'm going to say Robot Man as the survivor. And just this pristine, beautiful suburb obliterated. Trying to get the ball rolling here.
Well, I find it interesting that you pick, Cliff Steele to be the survivor, because what if, because Yeah. Me personally, I probably, considering that you started out in the Doom Patrol, I probably would have had him like doing a mission alongside them. You know, you could have had Beast Boy be the one with like survivor's guilt.
Oh, that would be better actually, and that would be kind of a reason why he's on the pro side.
Yeah, like you could do to him what happened with Robbie Baldwin. You know, people blame him. And also, that would since he is a Teen Titans member, that would cause negative backlash, you know, for the Titans as well as their reputation, and that would cause a split in the team roster.
Yeah, true. So we'll have but I think that I like the way I came up with how not only Dr. Fate is eliminated, but how the event actually began.
That's actually a good way to start it off, considering that Parasite can mimic, you know, the powers of people once he's absorbed a little bit of their life force. And definitely a magical explosion would definitely, you know, do the trick to reducing a suburb to practically nothing.
And then at the funeral, some of the members of the Teen Titans actually come in to pay respects, and the family members of the deceased actually try to beat up some of the Teen Titans members. I physically abuse them, and the Teen Titans trying to pay respects to those who died won't fight back, which leads the government to saying, we've let these characters do whatever they wanted. And I would think Lex Luthor would be like, or characters in the media would just say, we let these heroes do whatever they please for far too long. They need to pay the repercussions for their actions. And so Clark, being part of the Daily Planet, he'd be like, I'm sick of, why are we just bashing the heroes that protected us for years? And then Perry, Lois, and Jimmy are gonna, mostly with Perry White, he's gonna say, well, Kent, it doesn't matter. That era is gone. Heroes have to take responsibility for their actions. If not, they're not called heroes anymore.
I think as well, they should have an event that would call away all the Superman family members, you know, and because like having all the Superman characters in there, you know, that'd be kind of like, you know, the combined might of the Hulk, basically, because they're already super powered. You can't really hurt them minus kryptonite and magic and stuff.
Well, but
so it's like,
what I'm saying is that we can have a scene with Clark Kent and Connor Kent and Kara, and before they leave to go, because they get a call from, because Superman is contacted by, or you could do something really interesting. The Legion of Superheroes actually gives Superman a call, and they need not only his help, but Connor's and Kara's help also.
Don't forget about Power Girl. Would Karen actually play a role in there?
I think she would, because she's a member of the Justice Society and would be a powerhouse. I think she would stay just because she's a member of the Justice Society.
And, you know, technically she is kind of the weaker of the L family, so it's like she's a powerhouse, but she's not, like, you know, ridiculously powerful like Clark or Connor or even Kara would be.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so...
yeah, that's actually good, you know,
to help out with the Legion of Superheroes, and Batman is going to be like, Clark is not answering his Justice League communicator. Something must have gone up. It's about time I investigate what's going on in the U.S. government. And he goes in the guise of Bruce Wayne, and he goes to one of the hearings for this act. That now, did we set up a leader, like a leader for this pro-registration side of?
Yes, I actually believe that Nathaniel Adam, Captain Adam, was one that we said was a very strong, possibility.
No, let's go with Captain Adam, because I see that would be the perfect choice.
Well, that's basically what I mean. Nathaniel Adam is basically Captain Adam.
Yeah. Oh, I know his identity. Meh. I don't know what I'm saying. Then Bruce actually goes to one of these hearings, and meanwhile, Captain Adam's talking to the president, and the president's like, Congress wants me to pass this bill. People are clamoring for justice. What do you want me to do, Captain? And I can see Captain Adam being like, don't worry, Mr. President. We'll figure out a way to solve everyone's problems. We always do. And right beside, on his side, he has both Ralph Dimney, the Elongated Man, and Booster Gold by his side.
Yeah, and
house.
I think we might have made Bruce like the anti-registration leader.
Yeah, well, it would kind of fit since Clark's going to be in the future.
And plus, despite the fact that he's got files on almost everybody and whatnot and what have you, Bruce still, does believe that, a secret identity is a secret identity.
Yeah. Ooh, would be really interesting is that the government, since Captain Adam, knowing that Batman would go against the government on this, Captain Adam would find a way to destroy the Batcomputer, rendering all time.
But see, he would have to find out that he was Bruce Wayne and find, Wayne Mansion and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. But
they could probably, since, you came up with the idea that maybe, Tim Drake would actually join the pro-registration side, that maybe he would covertly sneak in there and plant a computer virus inside the Batcomputer.
Yeah, that would be, and that would just not only ruin the Batcomputer so Batman cannot access any of his files and all the heroes he's going to fight. He's going to be fighting blind. Or without any of the information he has in those files.
That may be true, but, Bruce, but this is Batman we're talking about.
Yeah.
He'd probably have, he'd probably have backup files, but it would probably take him a really long time to actually defrag the Batcomputer because of how corrupted it would be.
No, what I'm saying is that completely destroy the Batcomputer. Like have it explode, like Tim Drake not only would put in a virus that would try to disrupt the files, but if anyone were to try to cancel out the virus, there'd be like a program set in that would destroy the piece of technology that's infected with that virus. I can imagine Bruce knowing that his Batcomputer's been hacked and infected with the virus. He would try to fix it. Then, while he's trying to fix it, it covertly activates code. Then the computer explodes.
Not like explode, but I would probably put it more or less as it just basically just crashes. That's a bit overly dramatic to actually just have it just like boom, pish pow explode. Like actually crashing completely. That seems, more technically sound.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to go more extravagant, but I'm saying, well, you do bring a point there. It would just crash completely. It would take a while to actually.
The main point is that it would either be dead or it would take him a really long time to repair it.
Let's go with dead.
What Where would Cyborg go? Where do you guys think he would go?
We already set him up as part of the anti-registration side of things.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we had a lot of characters actually that would be on the anti-registration side.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so far we've come up with more anti-registration members than we have like pro-registration.
Yeah, it's true.
But I think some of them would have legitimate reasons for being anti and some being pro. Like, I think definitely one that we set up was Jaime Reyes. You know, he'd start out pro, but, you know, he'd be kind of like, you know, Spider-Man was in the Civil War. He'd be that character that's reluctant to reveal his identity. And I think, much like, you know, Peter Parker, I think, you know, his crippled dad and, you know, the rest of his, you know, family, even his girlfriend, you know, Jenny 13 and what have you, when they start actually getting targeted and hurt by, say, like Black Beetle and other villains, and Captain Atom doesn't, you know, really, like, you know, acknowledge this. He's like, you know, well, that's the price that you're going to have to pay. You know, I can imagine Jaime flipping out on him.
That's true.
You know, I mean, it's not for nothing that, you know, the pro side wouldn't have, you know, its great characters. I mean, you know, you'd have, you know, of course, Tim Drake, you'd have, you know, Ralph Dibny, you'd have Booster Gold, you'd have Plastic Man, you'd have Roy Harper. So there'd be a few that
Nightwing.
Me personally, I'm kind of up in the air about Nightwing, but it's like, I guess, you know, Dick would probably have his reasons for being on the pro side. But I would more or less, if he was on the pro side, I would always have that sneaking suspicion that he'd probably be a mole. Like in some sort of way, because I just can't really... Knowing Dick Grayson the way that I do, I just don't picture him, you know, being completely okay with the government wanting to register superheroes.
Oh, we need to have some members of the Bat family on the pro registration side, not only Tim.
Well, I mean, not just Tim, but I can actually, for the most part,
Jason Todd.
Jason Todd would probably more than likely join the pro registration side just for the fact that he can try to show Bruce, you know, one-up him and shit. Let's see, Tim, Jason. I can actually more or less probably maybe see Kathy Kane given the right circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
It's been like, you know, she's actually blackmailed into actually joining the pro registration site, concerned that Captain Atom knows who her father is, or finds out who her father is and kind of blackmails her. Otherwise, you know, he can actually release the information that, you know, yeah, you know, Batwoman is the daughter of, you know, such and such, and that ruins her father's military reputation.
Yeah, and what about Damian?
That's an interesting one. That's like the albatross, if you will. Because on one hand, he is Bruce's son, and on the other hand, he was trained by Raish.
And his mother.
You know, and his father to a certain degree. I don't know. Damian's kind of a fickle character. I mean, what little I do know of the character, it's like he could really honestly go either way. Helena Bertinelli is another interesting one.
I'd say she would be... honestly see her on the pro side of things.
Especially since she has such a hatred of crime.
That she does. The question would definitely be anti-registration.
Definitely Vic Sage, or even hell, you could actually add a conflict between, like, you know, Batwoman and the Question, considering that if you went with Renee Montoya's version, considering that they were former lovers.
Yeah. More with the Vic Sage question.
I would more or less go with Vic Sage too, because that just feels like it would make more sense.
Yeah, he's the kind of character that would fit in this kind of event anyway.
Definitely characters like Martian Manhunter would actually fit on the anti-registration side. You know, I can see Ray Palmer actually being on the pro side, or at least, or either him or Ryan Choi, one or the other.
I see Ray Choi on the anti-registration and have Ray Palmer on the pro.
Like, let's see. Other characters that would probably...
Well, we already... let's see. We already have, like, the deaths of Dr. Fate. And then the Phantom Stranger would come in. I'd say his death would be, like, the impact on the... Like in Civil War, when Goliath died.
Yeah, like Phantom Stranger, you know, could be...
Goliath death.
Yeah, he'd be like, you know, the death that you look at and you're like, whoa, really? But it would be kind of impactful. And, you know, Civil War gave rise to Hercules. I say Civil War should give rise to a character that could eventually, you know, become a great character in their own right. Because let's face it, Herc, most people knew him during the 60s and 70s, but he didn't really honestly get his rise into like that moment when he took on Ragnarok and Civil War.
Oh, I know a perfect moment, like, they can get Hank Henshaw, a cyborg Superman, to play as Superman, to act like Superman, and say that...
You know, kind of like, you know, the Death of Superman arc.
Yes.
I like that.
And say that Superman came back from what he was doing to join the pro side. And then... But... Or it could be Steel, who would know that it's Hank Henshaw. And Steel would say, I had enough of this cyborg Superman. And we'll have him be the Hercules character and have him take out Cyborg Superman.
You know, that would yeah, because it's like, you know, a lot of people seem to underestimate John Henry Irons, and I think that would be a great moment to kind of show that, you know, yeah, Steel, I mean, even in Death of Superman, you know, he was a very strong character, but I think it would remind people of just how strong, you know, John really is as a character. And also, I think what would be even more interesting is that when Hank Henshaw's, you know, found out that, you know, he tries to actually, you know, incinerate a lot more people, and you know, John ends up teaming with a few other people. Like, I can imagine even Captain Atom would have to, like, call a truce just for everybody to try to fight, you know, Hank down, especially considering that Hank would have, like, a convoy of manhunters, you know, at his will.
Mm-hmm.
So, at least temporarily, you would see a truce ceasefire to stop Hank Henshaw, and then after that, you know, it'd be like, you know, that one time where Captain Atom would be like, you know, okay, you know, this is the one free shot that you guys get, where, you know, we get to walk away and you get to walk away, but it's not really over. Like, it'd be that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, how would we kill off the Phantom Stranger?
I can imagine if you're going with Hank Henshaw, could probably have the Phantom Stranger actually be impaled by, like, you know, his cybernetic tentacles, but here's the twist to it.
Mm-hmm.
They would actually be his mechanical tentacles would actually be mystically imbued by Eclipso.
Ooh.
And that would give a reason for the Spectre to enter the war. However, he would be very neutral. He would actually be trying to find Eclipso. And in the process, both the pro and anti-registration sides would actually end up fighting the Spectre. Not only the Spectre, but also Eclipso as well. So it's like a four-way fucking battle.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. But
I think the great moment would be when Batman actually looks all around, kind of like Captain America did, and he'd see all the innocent civilians, being harmed, and he would tell Captain Atom, it's like, look around us, look how much collateral damage we're causing, and I could or have like an event, or even better yet, since Captain Atom has that whole quantum energy deal, what if during like a psionic backlash during the fight between Spectre and Eclipso, when both the Spectre and Eclipso are knocked out, that there's such a giant deal of mystic energy that could have been similar to what happened with Parasite absorbing Dr. Fate, that Captain Atom absorbs all that energy, boom, he's quantified into the future, and he sees what the destruction and chaos that the Civil War did, that it was 10 times that event with Parasite, and that it caused a totalitarian government ruled by, the likes of Lex Luthor and Vandal Savage and other people, and that, heroes were brainwashed or, deprived, and that they were made, like government agents, like assassins and shit, or sold to the highest bidder like black market sheep. Almost kind of like, slavery. And I think that would be a great moment of clarity, not only for Captain Atom, but I think for, both sides. Captain Atom would come back, and he'd be like, he'd stop Bruce, and he'd be like, Bruce, I saw the future. I saw what this thing is gonna do, to all of us. And then, that's when it all kind of starts to click together, where the plan starts falling apart, and then we see guys like Lex Luthor and stuff start putting like an ultimatum type plan.
yeah, it also would be really cool, like the fights between Captain Atom and Batman. Good lord.
That you want to talk about kind of an overpowered type moment. It's like Captain Atom is powerful enough to take on Superman. So it'd be no different. So Bruce would be facing, he'd be facing Nathaniel no different than he would be with Clark, only except, Nathaniel can actually manipulate atomic energy. Meaning that literally if Bruce is even grazed by an atomic bolt, that his skin would be a little bit sizzled or hot flashed.
Ooh. I'm just picturing that, like those when each hero in the Civil War got into like their own solo, like one-on-one fights. I imagine the fight between Batman and Captain Atom to be like really brutal.
Oh yeah, and expect Bruce to be wearing like power armor.
Of course.
But of course you'd also have liquid nitrogen type capsules to throw at him as well to try to cool him off.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of neutral characters would probably, be in this, or a few neutral characters. But I can't remember which ones we said were going to be specifically neutral.
Didn't we make I know we made... And I think we made this...
Well, yeah, Spectre will be neutral.
Yeah,
that's a given.
Neutral. I think that we haven't really talked about Etrigan, how he would see things in this kind of event.
That's definitely another big character. Him and like Zatanna and a few other people.
What about Constantine?
Sargon, the Sorcerer, Starman.
How would that would fit in here?
Captain Comet. I don't know. I'm naming off random characters, but
Those different, like, what would happen if Etrigan got involved in this DC Civil War?
that would certainly be an interesting one. He is, technically the ruler of Hell?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. At that point.
I don't really know. That would play up very interestingly. Because it can go so many different ways, really.
It could be one way.
But here's the big question. With the pro and anti-registration sides, who's going to have their headquarters in what, and is that said headquarters going to be raided or destroyed?
Well, I say for the... You have a point there. Well,
And then again, we mentioned the prison briefly. You're thinking that they should base it in Gem World, and I say, go with the Phantom Zone. Or at the very least, have both be prisons.
Yeah.
But then that makes me wonder, if we're going to Gem World, how would Amethyst feel about this?
How would Amethyst feel? Captain Adam explaining to her that, I'm sorry, Amethyst, we have to use your world as a prison for all these non-heroes.
But I also have to wonder as well, what if there's a fight that breaks out in Gem World? Imagine how pissed off that would make her. That her land is being destroyed all because of a petty indifference.
Oh, yeah.
And also, given the fact that she's a Lord of Order, and that she's actually went toe-to-toe with the Spectre,
mm-hmm.
She brings a whole nother level to the word Hell haveth no fury.
When a woman is scorned. Oh.
I mean, literally, her worst enemy, she basically implanted him into the center of Gem World. Like the center of its core. Imagine what she can do to just about everybody fighting on her world.
I can see it now. The fight breaks out in one of these prisons, right? And it's completely destroying bits and pieces of Gem World. Amethyst gets furious, and she decides to warp reality and cause all the people who are fighting in her world to go insane. And they're hallucinating all of their worst fears, or their hopes and dreams. They're seeing a lot of emotions just transpire through each of them.
Maybe if we were doing a version of Fear itself and she went power crazy, I could go with that. But
yeah, I think we see that portion for the next kind of idea.
Yeah, if we come up with our own version of DC's Fear itself, that would definitely be a great, arc where Amethyst just goes fucking power crazy. But
I think for all intents and purposes, we'll save Amethyst and Gem World for the Fear itself stuff, and we just.
I think that the Phantom Zone just feels kind of more appropriate as a prison because it is in a sense DC's equivalent of the Negative Zone.
Yeah, let's just go with the Phantom Zone and save Gem World for the DC's universe version of Fear itself.
Or an actual storyline that would actually call for that.
Yeah.
But I think definitely a character that is very interesting. He'd probably be neutral. He probably wouldn't even give a shit either way. Is Hellblazer.
Oh yeah, Constantine. He'd be like, I would see John smoking a cigarette, bloody
Just
arrows. They always fight over petty indifferences.
He'd probably look at him and he'd probably have the Manchester black attitude. He'd be like, pro, anti, hero versus hero. He goes, where the fuck are the bad guys? Are they sitting there having a cheap fuck and a smoke? Like, I can picture that too, because you remember how, like...
Doing that. Yeah, I picture John doing that.
I can picture it now. You'll have somebody, like, I don't even know, like, I'm trying to think of a really, like, horrible DC villain. Oh yeah, you could have somebody like the Tin-Eyed Man, like, robbing a bank, and John just literally sees him running with the cash. He takes a long drag of his cigarette, takes a deep breath, sighs, snaps his fingers, and all of a sudden there's a giant fucking, black wormhole. It sucks the Tin-Eyed Man down and then just, shrinks right around his waist and he's stuck in the concrete.
Yeah, it's
just
an awesome scene.
And then John just sits there. He grabs the money and gives it back to the bank owner. He's like, "Oh, I'm so happy," and just John's just looking at him like, "What are you, a fucking fruit?" And then just walking away. But
yeah, then both heroes from the pro and anti side of things will try to recruit him. I would picture him saying, "Fuck you," in front of their faces.
Yeah. I can picture it right now. They're like, "No, John, come with this side." It's like, "No, John, come with this side." And he'll just look at them both and be like, "Shut the fuck up."
No, it would be better. Like Captain Atom and Batman visit him personally, but on different occasions. Yeah, I kind of picture like Bruce is explaining to John, like, "We need to fight these people. This isn't right." And John's like, "It doesn't matter, Bruce or Batman. We're all heroes in the end, are we?" And he takes this long drag of cigarette, then he decides to flip Batman off, and he says, "Fuck you, fuck your side, fuck both your sides, I'm out of here."
No, wait, no, I can... what would be actually really funny is that he's like, "But you have a duty to the government," and I can see Constantine sitting there, his cigarette's right at the end, and just because it's John, he literally sticks the cigarette right in Captain Atom's chest and puts the cigarette out, even smushes it right into his chest.
And then
and then he takes out another cigarette, takes a match, and literally just snaps the little lidded wick end. He basically uses Captain Atom's metal skin as a flare to start the matchstick or something.
Yeah.
It's so stupid, but it sounds so funny.
Yes, it would be awesome.
Just for a cheap gag. He's like, "I don't give a fuck about this war. And why are you guys even fighting what? All because, Dr. Fate, had his underoos burnt." And then I think that would be a funny moment for Beast Boy to just go fucking psychotic, try to attack him. And John...
Not to that. What kind of effects would that have on Beast Boy? What would happen to
him? If he's got the survivor's guild, imagine what that must make him feel like. I mean, he's probably...
He would definitely be scarred, for sure.
I mean, he certainly wouldn't be happy-go-lucky. He'd be dark, he'd be brooding, he'd probably be more animalistic. Hell, probably have some fucked up part where he tries to...
I think of something really interesting. He would actually be... He would take, over time, while he's healing, he would develop more animal characteristics. Physical characteristics, instead of having, he would develop, mouth and skull shape of a lion, grow a long mane and have like all of his fingers and toes be like claws. He would like grow a tail or no tail. He would be limber like a ape.
I'd probably make him a little bit more rabid.
More rabid, more bestial. That's what I'm thinking.
Like he would be so traumatized by this that he would actually just be full of rage, especially because he'd feel like, Garfield always felt rejected, being green-skinned and being able to turn to any animal that he wanted. Having this event and knowing that, he's kind of basically, the butt of blame, unlike Robbie Baldwin, who became emo, he would become a fucking sociopath.
Ooh, but I got a picture of him after this event, since it's magical energy. I kind of picture him not looking like a normal human being with green skin anymore. He would still have violent animalistic tendencies, but he wouldn't look human. Like, I kind of picture him looking like beasts, when
Hank McCoy.
Yeah, Hank McCoy, but with green skin, and instead of like more, but the shape of Garth's skull would be more like a lion or a tiger's. And it would be interesting, like, if he were to have a comic to spin off in, it'd be called The Savage Beast Boy, or Beast Man. Or would he have a new persona?
Beast Man would probably work better because it's like he's not technically a boy anymore.
Yeah. What do you...
Or, Changeling. You could always call him Changeling. Since that's what he originally had the name for.
Or, since, he can name himself or he can give him a more darker name. Like, Robbie Baldwin was called Speedball before Civil War happened and he became Penance. So, how would Garth, in his head, pay, and also externally, how would he pay the repercussions for the deaths of those people? And I'm thinking. I know he would have an...
Ooh, you know what? You know what actually make it even creepier is that if he has more like a lion's mane and stuff, I think just to make it creepier, what if he had like lizard or amphibian-esque eyes? You know how like snakes have like those slanted eyes?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm thinking. He would...
Like just imagine that. Imagine if he had all these different characteristics of the animals and those fucking eyes. That would intimidate anybody.
Yeah. No, he would be called Bestiary. No, Bestiary. Like, a catalog of... cultures. Like,
that's what they should actually had called him after a while, as Bestiary or something like that.
That would be his new persona after this, like during this event. It would be called Bestiary, and he'd be a savage, creepy monster. And imagine what the members of the Teen Titans would see him after that. Can you imagine the reactions they would get?
Oh, better yet, imagine how it would make Raven feel, since they would have a history of dating.
Oh yeah, I kind of picture.
Imagine what that must be like for Raven. I mean, she'd probably think that Garth looked fucking demonic or something.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, and I can't believe we're just...
And imagine how it would make, Victor Stone feel, considering that's, his best friend.
Yeah. And I would kind of picture a scene where Vic and Garth would have like a scene together. And I can imagine Victor's like, something that should have happened a long time ago, Victor. I'm not the same person I once was. I was too carefree. But after what happened, now I see what should happen to us. We should respect those who we protect. We have to do what is necessary to keep everybody safe. To not let those who died be on our shoulders. Their death will be burned into our memories. Is the thing that torments me every day.
But I think also, much like with Robbie, especially with Avengers Academy, I think after a while, Garth, he would slowly kind of start to be a little more at peace with himself, because that's what happened with Robbie after a while. They made him kind of, he still had a little bit of remnants of penance. They're still there.
Mm-hmm.
But he slowly started to kind of, repair his psyche a little bit. And I think that would be great, for Garfield, to be able to slowly start to make peace that, okay, what happened, but, I need to better myself and actually move on and not, completely put the blame on myself all that much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And especially and I think the Deus Ex is that in the end, Lex Luthor and all them have this big traumatic event, and at the end of it, the Lords of Order actually intervene. And that they complete, not even just the Lords of Order, but the Lords of Chaos. The main Lords of Chaos are just okay, evil has, overtaken this way too much, even, we have to side, with the Lords of Order, there must be balance. The world is so uncosmically in tune
Mm-hmm.
that it's literally affecting the Earth itself. We're while the heroes are fighting, there's giant, increased, seismic activity. The Earth's core, as overly dramatic as it may sound, stops, spinning. The core starts actually, fluctuating, and so there's increased, volcanic activity. There's seismic activity. Because, the balance has shifted so much to chaos that it starts actually ripping the planet apart and causing, these end of days type events. And eventually, by the time that that both sides realize this, it's already nearly too late. And it's in that last moment that, the Lords of Order and the Lords of Chaos, try to set everything right. But one of the key factors to that would be a newly christened and newly, resurrected Dr. Fate.
Or also a new Phantom Stranger.
Yeah, a new version of the Phantom Stranger. And I think with the Phantom Stranger, you may laugh with this, you would have, I think for the I think for Dr. Fate, since he always wore blue, I would love to have him just have white and gold when he's actually comes back. He'd have a more angelic looking appearance to him.
That's what I think too. And I think
now, in terms
it would
of
be more like armor.
Yeah, make it more, holy armor-esque. Not make him look like the Redeemer. Certainly not like that, but